Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Story Hour. I am your host, Daniel Marcus. My fabulous co-host is Laura Blackwell, and I hope that you're all healthy and safe, taking care of yourselves and your loved ones in what continue to be deeply weird times. I started Story Hour 3.5 years ago, early days of the pandemic, very uncertain times. I wanted to just create a place where me and my writer friends could get together once a week and share work and build some kind of community, a little bulwark against the darkness. And boy, it has just grown phenomenally since then. So we've been here every week in, week out, except for the week between Christmas and New Year's. And we've had just some astonishing talent through these rooms. And Laura and I are both just humbled and just awed by what we've managed to build and continue to facilitate. And it's a wide tent. I mean, we get people who sold their first story 30 years ago, folks who sold their first story 3 months ago, fantasy writers, hard SF, slipstream, everything in between. It's been just phenomenal. So, the way this works is it's a very, what I think of as a very ancient, time-honored form of entertainment. You can imagine Mog and Og sitting around the fire, and Mog says, I almost killed this mammoth, but it flew away. It grew wings and it flew away. And, I couldn't do anything about it. And Og says, it's really interesting because I had an encounter with a mammoth as well. It did not have wings, but it spoke to me and it told me that it was actually a human trapped in the body of a mammoth. And so that's the beginnings of sharing the fictive dream, basically sitting around the fire telling lies to each other. And that's what we do every week. We have two writers, about 30 minutes each, sharing their work. This week, we are really happy to welcome Brian Hugenbruch and Nicole M. Wolverton. So welcome, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really happy to announce that we have received a SIFWA Givers Grant for 2023 so that we can keep the lights on and these virtual rooms open and continue to bring you what we really believe is some of the best spoken word speculative fiction you can get anywhere these days. Before we go to our authors' recommendations for worthy causes, which we do every week, Story Hour would like to call your attention to how you might support the writers and actors and actresses and all the other folks on the front lines of the WGA and SAG after a strike. There is an entity founded in 1882, if you can believe that, called the Entertainment Community Fund. And they provide a huge spectrum of programs, workshops, support groups, online resources, emergency financial assistance to support the needs of all of the folks who work in performing arts and entertainment. And this has been an essential resource for folks on strike and impacted by the strike. So that's entertainmentcommunity.org. So check it out. We ask our authors also to indicate a worthy cause for us to call your attention to. If you're in a position to contribute financially, that's great. But if you can't, that's fine. Just be aware, spread the awareness to your friends and family. And, that's great. So Brian is reading tonight for Feed More WNY. That's feedmorewny.org. WNY stands for Western New York. So that's kind of the Erie, Pennsylvania region. ERIE, not EERIE. This organization was born from the healthy merger of two of the area's most well-known and well-respected relief organizations, the Food Bank of WNY and Meals on Wheels for Western New York. For many years, the two groups worked in tandem, but separately. They shared a vision of ending hunger in their shared community. And today, Feed More WNY continues a long-standing mission of offering hope dignity and a brighter future by providing nutritious food, friendship, and skills training to its Western New York neighbors. Nicole is reading tonight for WRRAP, the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project, WRRAP.org. WRRAP is the largest national independent nonprofit abortion fund. They provide urgently needed financial assistance nationwide to individuals seeking abortion services or emergency contraception. And an especially essential organization these days. So please be aware of those, check them out. If you can contribute, great. If you can't, that's fine too. We're going to start the program tonight with Brian. Brian Hugenbruch is a speculative fiction writer and poet living in upstate New York with his wife, their daughter, and their unruly pets. By day, he writes information security programs to protect your data on and from the internet. His fiction has appeared or is forthcoming in Diabolical Plots, ZMB Presents, and Analog. His poetry has appeared in Apparition Lit, Eye to the Telescope, and Abyss and Apex. You can find him on Twitter at BWHUGEN, on Instagram at _letter_C, that's LETTERSEA, and at the-letterc.com, same spelling as the Instagram handle. And no, he is not sure how to say his last name either. This is Brian's second visit to Story Hour. So Brian, take it away.
Thanks, Daniel, and good evening to everybody. Thank you very much for having me back. I must have either said the right or wrong things last time that you brought me back, but I appreciate it either way. I have two stories in my back pocket tonight, just trying to pick ones that would fit within an appropriate amount of time. The first one is a flash piece that appeared in February in Translunar Traveler's Lounge. It's called In Lieu of Natural Habitats. Papa, the little girl asked him, why is the ocean sideways? It was a good question. Fortunately, Brennan had done his research well in advance of promising his daughter a trip to see the mermaids. He kneeled down to her eye level and took her hand. Aoife, they made this ocean sideways to help creatures grow in it. He looked askance at the gargantuan wall of salt water. There was no way to replace the oceans of the homeworld, but the terraformers had done their best. A vertical ocean, cities wide and kilometers tall, held in place by suspensors and powered by solar panels running up each corner. His grandfather had shown him hollows of aquariums, little lakes inside their houses. But this was several orders of magnitude greater, an aquarium gone world-sized. Why? Aoife was 7 rotations old, and this was her favorite question. Because we lost all our old oceans back on the homeworld. Because we didn't clean up after ourselves? That's right, sweetie. So where did we get the fish from? Brennan rubbed his fingers on the bridge of his nose. Did they teach genetics in primary school? We grew them, he said, like fruit. It's more complicated than that. We have recipes and ingredients for everything that ever swam there. So maybe it's more like baking. Aoife nodded solemnly. How many creatures are in there? Millions, Brennan said promptly, all of different types. It's like a wildlife preserve. We mean for it to feel just like the old oceans did. The creatures wouldn't be happy if we gave them something they couldn't use. So now there are lionfish and sharks and mermaids and whales and sea plants and glow-in-the-dark fish. Bioluminescent, Aoife corrected him. That's right, he said, smiling. Bioluminescent. Then he tousled her hair. She giggled and tried to squirm out of the way. But hey, you want to go see the top? There's an elevator made of glass. It'll take us up and down and through the ocean so we can see all the fish. But something else had caught his daughter's attention. Papa, she asked, why is there trash on the bottom? He followed her finger toward a spot near the bottom of the vertical ocean. Let's go look. They walked hand in hand until they were standing next to the enormous block of water. Aoife looked upward, momentarily distracted by the immensity of it. Brennan felt his stomach clench a bit. He'd been part of the crew that had set up those suspensors, so he knew precisely how well they worked. Barring a worldwide power outage, they'd hold the ocean up forever, but it didn't prevent that momentary what-if panic. While the bottom did mimic the deeper portions of the homeworld's ancient seas, The twin suns above added more light than any dwellers of the deep might have found, at least here on the outer skin of the habitat. And sure enough, there was a half-eaten sandwich and wrapping paper near the edge, close enough that he could pluck them out, but that would crush his hand under an immense amount of pressure. He caught Eva's reaching hand before she found that out for herself. "Careful, kiddo. The ocean's heavy." She looked up at him with wide eyes. "So why is there garbage in it?" He kneeled down again and took a deep breath. A litany of excuses leaped to mind. The wind up top pulled it. The boat several kilometers above them was jostled, something to make it an accident. But he owed her more truth than that. "People forget, sweetie. They see a new ocean and forget how hard it was to make this one. There are rules and laws against this stuff, but that doesn't stop some folks." "Are they bad people?" "Usually not, just careless." Eva smiled up at him. "I'll be careful," she declared. "I'll be the most careful ocean person there is." She might well be at that. Her brothers had flitted from interest like minnows, but Eva had sunk her teeth into the sea early. It might well stick. "I don't doubt it," he told her. "Would that everyone was that careful." "Papa?" "Yes, sweetie." "Who's that lady?" He turned around and took an involuntary step back. A merwoman had swum down to collect the wrapper and the sandwich. For all their talk of merfolk, he hadn't actually expected to see one today. They kept to themselves in the innermost parts of the ocean. Most had voted to stay on the homeworld, knowing the humans were leaving it in ruins. The ones that volunteered to travel remained wary of them, with reason. The lady froze when she made eye contact with the little girl, and then smiled gently. Her hair billowed a bit in a current he couldn't see, but felt like a phantom wind. "Her teeth look sharp," Aoife said. "I think she is a friend," Brennan answered, patting his daughter's back. "Unless you drop your sandwich." The merwoman shook her finger at them, and then picked something else up. It looked suspiciously like a boot, and in it, he turned his daughter away. "Let's go see about that elevator, huh? I bet if we hurry, we can beat the line, and the whales should be coming out near the top soon. Would you like that?" Aoife, oblivious, whooped and took off toward the pavilion. Brennan followed, gritting his teeth. He could feel the merwoman's eyes boring into his back. He did not turn around. That pit in his stomach, what if, grew deeper. But he knew how oceans worked, and he'd explain the high price of carelessness to her later. The homeworld was a long time ago. Humans did their best to live in newfound harmony, but the oceans had learned from their past mistakes. Rules and laws were fine, but she would need to be extra careful. So would they all. This ocean was defended. It took me a little bit as I was prepping for this to try to figure out how best to set up Nicole in terms of picking out what stories would fit best. So the second one is going to take a bit of a left-hand turn here, but I'm hoping this will jive pretty well. This one came out in December of 2021 in Diabolical Plots. It's called There's an Art to It. I approached the mighty gates of Fulmare with holes in my cloak and soot-covered fingers. The road was warm through the soles of broken boots. I could not think of a part of me that did not ache. Still, with rest so close at hand, I could surely turn one more page. A foot moves, one after the other, for 20 years. 20 years! It had taken me all this time to find every book house in the Valenthe Empire. The borders expanded as I worked, conquering every city between the far mountains and the endless sea. And now, the last one, the greatest one, Fulmare, conquered by the Valenthe not 1 year ago, held the largest library in the known world. The Bibliothedral, a series of spires said to contain the whole of the human mystery, had accumulated written words for longer than even the Empire had existed. I came to burn it. I squinted against the rising daylight. Even through the glare, I could see the gates sat open, song wafted joyously from somewhere within the walls. I did not fear armies. Armies I could handle, had handled, in fact. But time and pain had long since taught me to fear the unknown. Every other village, town, or city in the domain of Emperor Haman IV, all praise his name, had tried to bar my path. Fulmer seemed not to care. I readied myself to make fire at the first sign of danger. As I crossed under the portcullis, though, and into the promenade, I found nothing awry. Indeed, men in white robes recited poetry to me as I marched into the central square, spitting couplets and quatrains as fountain water arced behind them, catching the sun brilliantly. Was this meant as an insult? If I were a younger and angrier man, the one I was when I was made poem fire all those years ago, I would have scorched them where they stood. It was easier than breathing. A flick of the wrist would have sent gouts of flame to shame the sun. Their villanelles would have been as dust amongst the cobblestones. Now, though, the thought made me tired. I'd left too much dust in my wake already. Still, they knew who I was and what I was there to do. They expected a performance. So I marshaled my strength and grabbed one of the books perched by the fountain's edge. The orators neither balked nor cried out. They didn't even try to stop me, though the quatrains trailed off at least. It was a small favor. Not all of them had reasonable pitch. Curious, I glanced at the page, and then I stared, for only taxes lay there. It was a ledger to the eye, tracking grain and cattle in equation rather than couplet. None of the words they'd spoken, none of their nonsense about comparing love to the sun or roads to a summer's day. I grabbed one and asked, "What is this?" "Poetry," the man answered. "Are you daft? There's naught written here but economics." He shrugged his shoulders. "There's an art to it?" The emperor, I'll praise his name, had told me to suffer neither opposition nor insolence in my task to rid his world of poetry. But the man seemed so sincere, so idiotically simple, that I could scarce ignite him out of spite. I let him go, disgusted. He stumbled backward and landed on the cobblestones. I tossed the book at him. It bounced off his head and landed beside him. All I could think, as I stormed down the broad, tree-lined avenue, was that something had gone horribly wrong in Fulmer. If I were going to find answers, it would be at the bibliothedral itself. The stairs were of a rare kind of marble I knew the emperor favored. They baked my feet through my boots, though, so I had to step lightly despite my aches. Robe-clad women and men walked in the other direction, curious in a disinterested sort of way. Memory summoned 1,000 pleas for mercy as they passed. Those cries had gone unanswered. These folks knew me not. I found scholars roaming in cool chambers under the vaulted ceilings. Tomes and scrolls surrounded me on shelves higher than the city walls. Sickening, nauseating, criminal. I pulled a book from the nearest shelf and tossed it aside when I found only tables of coin weights. The cover, with its scale and its 5 coins, splayed across the ground. A young man scurried to pick it up, or perhaps to rescue the binding. One glare sent him running in the other direction. The next book I pulled had 4 coins on the cover, but it tracked funds sent to the Valenti. The one after that had 3 coins. Donkey exchanges. Was I in the wrong building somehow? "May I help you, child?" an old woman asked. She wore an ornate robe with nonsense symbols etched onto the side. "I am Jarad of Valenti," I told her. My voice sounded tired even to my own ears. "The Emperor's poem fire. Haman IV, all praise his name, has ordered all art in his domain destroyed." "We know his command," the librarian said. "All kingdoms he conquers learn to fear it. We assumed it would come for us someday." "I'm surprised he didn't bar the gates then. No one here seems to care." "To be clear," she answered, "we know who you are. We didn't bother to scare our citizens. Why would we? What have we to fear?" I gestured toward the shelves, frowning. Where is your literature? I demanded. All around you, she said. Poetry, sciences, even tomes of magic from Lost Trakan. It's taxes, I said. All of it. May we not find beauty of the world in such? She asked. Is not a balanced budget a song in its own right, and a perfect ledger not a sonnet? I am commanded, I told her with teeth clenched, to burn anything that is not taxes. While Haman's decree initially had been to turn to cinders all that had once been paper, the treasury convinced him that the empire would not survive without accounting. I, and those who followed in my blackened footsteps, never had much trouble finding the books. There was scarcely a territory without a library. The harder part was determining what we might reasonably set alight. The city of Fulmer, jewel of enlightenment, had been the emperor's most recent and perhaps final conquest. News of its burning would be the dearest prize I could offer to the man who had pulled me from poverty to do his will. I half imagined the bedridden man clutching at a scrap of paper with the news, feebly, while life fled from his fingers. By Emperor Haman, all praise his name, she agreed. You will show me which is which. No. She took a step back at the look that crossed my face, but she tilted her chin defiantly upward. I shall not. Burn them all, the young citizen called over. I wouldn't mind not paying taxes. My fist clenched by my hip as musical laughter rang out around me. I was tempted. By Haman, I was tempted. I needed but will and tinder, and books provided plenty of the latter. I could not torch the taxes, though. All such had to be moved to safer places ere the rest cindered. Those were my orders. I dared not disobey. Some smaller towns, especially border villages, raised weapons to try to save their art. I commended their bravery, but I let their corpses burn in the pyres to knowledge. It seemed fair commemoration, and most peasants lost their taste for blood after seeing smoked brains on the cobblestones. Knowledge could hurt a soul. Haman's wars taught me that. I was tired, so tired of knowing the smell of burned flesh. How long, I asked, have they been disguised as such? My entire lifetime, the old woman told me. We created this alphabet when Haman's grandfather was young. Your empire is dull and stupid and hates that which it does not understand. We made ready for this long ago. I could kill and torture your people, I told her. She nodded solemnly. I know, but you don't want that. I don't. No, it's clear from your voice. How long have you burned? 20 years, and pages without number. My voice was dry as dust in my ears. Hers too, it seemed, for her face twisted into what I could only assume was pity. A long time, she murmured, for a fire to burn. I expect, poor child, that the will to do this work left a long time ago. I shrugged. It was true. It changed nothing. Fire, I reminded her, does not take break or plead for leave. It burns until it is done. Her eyes narrowed. Do you know your letters, Poem Fire? Can you read these? Yes, of course I do, I snapped. I was older, though. The rank soldiers of the Empire, who had been raised without books, were taught naught but slaughter. Their approach to this work was one of far less finesse, and if they were summoned, the conclusion was inevitable. The city would be emptied of all those who dared to conjure untruths, artists or no. But they weren't here. I was, and I'd learned enough to know the revenue Fulmer could bring in taxes and trade was desperately needed by Valenthe. All this would bolster an empire that had burned itself out upon war and conquest. Fulmer sat against the boundless sea. There was no one left to conquer, and no one else left to tax. If anyone replaced me, they'd do Haman's will, and kill the empire in doing so. If I saved Fulmer, I saved my world. They'd forced my scorched hand. Well, the librarian asked, are you here to burn something or to learn something? How do you know, I asked, that I won't burn your library, hell's your whole city, once I know your ways? We don't, but if you can read 1,000 poems from 1,000 cultures, the woman said, truly read them and find nothing worth saving, then perhaps we deserve to be turned to ash. She smiled gently. Perhaps our poetry is worth the risk. She sounded so smug. I could feel the will to burn rising in me, volcanic fury from far below the bedrock of my being. They could learn what I already knew. The screams, the charnel stench, the sight of bodies melting. The work of 20 years had taxed my soul to ruin. There were no emotions left in my heart to conquer. But with a single missive back to Valenti, I could open my world to something other than carnage. And in doing so, I would preserve all that Hammond had created. Did I dare to disobey him to do his will? Did I dare read a poem to save society? When I had no ready answer, the old woman patted me on the shoulder. Get some rest, Poem Fire. There is an inn down the street where you may stay. Tomorrow begins your first lesson. It will, I'm sure, pay dividends. I turned and stormed out of the bibliothedral. The gall of their ploy had a certain artistry to it. I had to admire it even as I seethed. I'd run out of fuel to fight them, and their logic had doused what rage I had left. Still, I could sacrifice myself to art if it meant saving the Empire. And if it came to pass that soldiers were sent to bring the death I'd declined, this city would have no better ally in preserving the good of the Empire. Hammond IV, all praise his name, would never understand that. In his youth, he'd also been a man who'd acted rather than weighed consequence. Now he lay in his bed, waiting for one last gift. When I wrote back to Valenti, I would need to weigh my words carefully. He was near to death, and while I was honor-bound to the truth, it could be couched carefully. None knew better than I how knowledge could hurt a soul. My only hope, as I glanced back at the gleaming spires in the center of this strange place, was that knowledge could save a soul too. When I reached the inn, I sought out a quill and began to write a letter that, 20 years ago, I would rather have died than understood.
All right. Thank you so much for both of those stories. I really enjoyed them. Brian Hugenbruch, folks. It's our custom between authors just to pause, take a breath, be silent, and just sort of let the work resonate and clear our minds and hearts for the next work. So we're going to do that for just a sec. All right, Brian Hugenbruch, everybody. Thank you, Brian. And come back anytime. Nicole M. Wolverton is a Pushcart-nominated writer and author of the forthcoming YA speculative novel, A Misfortune of Lake Monsters, Camcat Books, Summer 2024, as well as the adult thriller, The Trajectory of Dreams from Biting Duck Press, that came out in 2013. Her short fiction and creative nonfiction have appeared in the Saturday Evening Post, the Nighty Night with Rabia Chowdhury podcast, and Memoir Magazine, among other publications. Nicole also served as editor and curator of Bodies Full of Burning from Sliced Up Press in 2021, a short horror anthology that centers around menopause. She resides in the Philadelphia area, where she is an Ivy League communication specialist, a judge of elections, and a dragon boater. If you don't know what that is, I had to look that up too. It's kind of a 25-year-old, sort of a 2,500-year-old, sort of crew-like practice. There's 20
With a
people,
much heavier boat.
much heavier boat, and it sounds really cool. Sounds awesome. So you can visit Nicole online at www.nicolewolverton.com. Nicole, take it away.
Thank you so much. And Brian, amazing. Thank you so much. That was great. So just as a little bit of a warning here, we're going to go a little bit darker. The story I'll be reading was published in an anthology edited by Nico Bell in January 2021, right in the heart of winter, which is an appropriate, for an anthology titled Shiver. With how extraordinarily hot and humid it's been over the past couple of weeks, I've been revisiting the anthology. Every story in it centers ice and snow, which has been lovely. And of course, that includes my story, which is called It's called Waiting for Winter. And just if you're sensitive to serial killers, blood, or death, now is the time to leave the room. All right. Front Street lay awash in tombstone grays, even against the garish storefronts lining the sidewalks. Mama is only freshly buried. It took the grave diggers days to pry up the frozen clay. I stood in the distance and watched. Sheriff Ramirez tells me that often the guilty party inserts himself, coming to the wake, lying flowers at the grave. He says it like he doesn't already know who eviscerated her. Maybe he doesn't want to believe what's come to his town. I shiver. My body has had enough of the cold. I push open the dirty pink door to Marley's diner. Inside, the dim overheads barely light the long counter that stretches in front of the grills, nor the beat-up booths and tables. It's better that the diner is the meeting place rather than the pristine restaurants that mostly cater to tourists and fancy people. Marley's is like the state of Mama's soul at the time of her death, unscrubbed. Not that a confession or act of contrition for the things she claimed to have done would have helped her go any easier in the end. Old Mrs. Kern nods at me from behind the agent register. It's early, 8:30 in the morning, but Annabelle already sits in the back corner booth. Even the shitty lighting can't hide the shine of her red hair. How long have you been here? I slide into the opposite side of the booth. The half-finished coffee cup in front of her bears overlapping pink lipstick marks along the rim. Her cuticles are picked raw. Not long, she says, 20 minutes. Her face is wan, but her eyes, those are alert. She's looking at me, looking at the floor, her gaze flitting over the counter. How are you doing with everything, Paige? She asks. The funeral was only 2 days ago. We could have postponed our check-in. It's not like, no, I don't think so. I signal to the shriveled waitress for the cup of tea. Glance back at Annabelle. I don't know why we waited this long. We should have known it was coming straight for us when he came back for your mom. Annabelle's sigh blows ripples in her coffee. No one could have known. Maybe after the second or third kill, sure, but not the first. There are silences that suck the air out of your lungs. What hangs between us is one of those. Finally, I catch my breath. There are no coincidences with final girls. Never. You can't tell me your mom didn't have 3 deadbolts on every door, didn't booby trap every window, wasn't sure he'd come back. Annabelle spins her coffee cup. Isn't that the whole point? My mom took every precaution. He still killed her in the end. Yours was a freak about security too, and look where it got her. We couldn't have saved any of them. So you're going to tell me why I had to snag the biggest booth? The front door opens and lets in a winter frigid blast. Even in the back corner, I shrug deeper into my parka. Kylie comes in first, followed by Melly. Annabelle tracks my stare and gasps. What is happening? You tell me right now, Paige Wallace. Kylie hangs her red jacket on the hook outside the booth and squishes next to Annabelle. She seizes Annabelle's coffee cup, drains the dregs, makes a face. Why do you put so much sugar in your coffee? It tastes like shit. Annabelle scoots closer to the wall. Because the coffee here tastes like shit. Melly stands at the edge of the table, tapping her fingers on the scuffed surface like she's running on no sleep, and a gallon of caffeine and Adderall. Gee, always such a delight to be back in Devil's Elbow. She's not wearing a coat, only a heavy black sweater. But she shucks off her gloves and scarf and throws them on the bench beside me, before plopping down on top of them. You said it was life or death, Kylie says. Here we are. Annabelle's mouth tightens. Life or death? The table goes silent when the waitress comes with my tea and pours coffee for everyone else. Melly shotguns her coffee straight black. If we're here, then that means Eva and Skylar should be here any minute too, right? Make a full collection of the final girl's daughters. Kylie's mouth knots. Is it right to call them the final girls anymore? They're all dead. The waitress comes back for refills. No one says a word, at least until she leaves. That's when I drop the reason I've called everyone here. I don't know if Eva's coming. She told me to go screw myself, so probably not. But Skylar, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. She's dead. And yeah, it's exactly what you think. Every eye on the table is on me. Every mouth is looking for an appropriate expression. Fear, resignation, anger. I get it. I was the same when Skylar's bestie texted me. I still don't know exactly how to contort my face to best express the mix of resignation and desperation brewing in my guts. Oh God, that's Annabelle softly. He's coming for us now, isn't he? Melly's back to tapping her fingers on the table, now double time. How did she die? I take a long sip of tea, buying time. It really doesn't matter. How did she die? Melly repeats. I don't want to say it, but I do. He strapped her down to the living room table and cut out her heart. Kylie pours in 3 full seconds worth of sugar. Well, that's fun. What do we do now? I shrug. That's kind of up to each of you. But I think maybe we stay here together and fight. Each of us knows Lakeview Recovery House in a way no one can understand. We've all spent time there for one reason or another. Mama and I only live a block away now. Well, I do now anyway. Mama never felt safe moving further than a few-minute walk from the facility, and I admit it feels comforting to have it within eyesight. After the attack took out Mama's entire sorority, Lakeview is where she was sent. One of the nurses showed me a picture once of Mama the night she arrived. Soaked in blood, hair standing out like streamers, eyes wide with shock, and her mouth like a slash of pain across her narrow face. There are photos of all the final girls. Kylie's mom was the sole survivor of a church massacre. She lost part of her arm but didn't die. Melly's mom gouged out her own eyes in Lakeview to stop the nightmares, but after the camp, well, she taught art, and it was turned into a killing field there. She later moved to Philly and had Melly. Skylar's a Jersey girl, but her mom came to Lakeview after a machete attack inside the family's home in Ohio. Eva's mother was catatonic for years afterwards. She survived an ambush on a radio station. Annabelle is the only one of us to have been born at Lakeview. Her mom was pregnant when every other person in the rural hospital she overnighted at was murdered. She's also the only one of us to have been marked personally. He stabbed her mom in the belly and it sliced open Annabelle's forehead. She has the tiniest indent from the blade just above her left eye. I've studied every picture, read every press clipping that I could get my hands on, tried to understand why our mothers survived and no one else did. And then there's the issue of why all our moms only had daughters, and no one has figured that out. Not me, not anyone. The only thing that does make perfect sense is why all our fathers deserted us. It's hard to live with a person who wakes screaming every night. All that's over now. for them and for our mothers. Lakeview closed a few years ago, federal budget cuts. How you justify closing the only facility to care for survivors of serial killer attacks, I'll never know. Maybe politicians just don't care about people like Mama and the others. Melly and her mom, they were homeless for a little while, but it was Lakeview that got them out of it. Same with Eva's mom when she went off the rails that once. The gravel crunches under the tires of Annabelle's car as we pull up. Lakeview does still exist, at least the building does. The quiet, cold air drills into the pores of my face when I open the car door. The white painted brick is dingy and white gray, just like the winter sky. So close in color that it's hard to tell where one begins and the other ends. Like Lakeview is vast and everywhere. Do you have a key? Kylie asks. I nod. Nurse Layla gave Mama one when the place closed. Just in case, I guess. Melly says, and the locks haven't been changed since then? I don't know for sure. But it's not like anyone's clamoring to buy an old psychiatric institute out here in the Pennsylvania sticks. Annabelle nods. Good point. The vapor in my breath reaches the front door before I do. With a shaking hand, not just from the cold, I reach out with the key. It fits smoothly into the lock, as if Lakeview is expecting us. Wants us. If not Lakeview, then someone else. I close my eyes and turn the key. The winter cold air follows us in. Melly's rubbing her gloved hands together in the foyer when I toss her the key. Would you do up the deadbolts? Somehow the clunk of all those locks falling into place, well, it doesn't bring me any sense of comfort or peace, but it's something. We should check the place, Annabelle says. Make sure it's locked down good and tight. Kylie nods. Should we get supplies first? She flicks a light switch on the wall, but nothing happens. Guess we'll need candles and flashlights, water and food. No telling how long we'll be here. It's a sober reminder. It won't be long, I say. He won't be able to resist all of us in a single place. But we're not all in one place, Annabelle says. Eva's in Florida. Eva's not in Florida, says a voice from the doorway. Melly issues a short scream and jumps backward. I whirl, ready to fight, but it's only Eva. She's dressed in head-to-toe camo and holds a pistol. And we've got plenty of supplies, she says. I stopped on my way and picked up everything we might need. From ammo to matches to crackers. What are you doing here, Melly says. I thought you were staying put. Eva holds up a finger, places her gun on a dusty table. She leans over, rolls up her pant leg to show off a white bandage. 17 stitches. He came at me with a kitchen knife almost right after I got off the phone with you, Paige. I pushed him out a third-story window, but you know how that goes. The foyer breaks into whispers and questions. Melly groans. Are you okay? I say to Eva. She smirks, rolls down her pant leg. I'm hopped up on some pretty good painkillers right now. Never thought I'd spend my 18th birthday speeding up the I-95, bleeding all over the damn car. Stopped somewhere in Georgia for the stitches, figuring I'd be safe-ish. Drove nonstop until I got to Pennsylvania. Happy birthday, Kylie says. I know we're supposed to give you presents and all, but what'd you bring us? Eva gestures to follow her. She leads us to the massive living room. It's still crowded with old vinyl couches and bean-shaped coffee tables. One entire wall is a plate glass window made inaccessible by wrought iron bars that stretch the length and the width. Outside, it's starting to snow. A dozen paper bags are at the far end of the room, grouped on the floor. There's a shit ton of ramen packs, and I bought a portable stove and kettle. Should keep us in food. There's water in the trunk of my car. Where is your car, I say? We didn't see it when we pulled in. I broke into the barn out back, parked in there. Look, there are a few guns, some knives, rope, tape, a few other odds and ends. I wasn't going to come and be bait, but screw him. Eva crosses her thin arms. Safety in numbers. If someone can help me with the water, then we can really lock this place down for good. Annabelle and Kylie go, leaving me and Melly alone in the Lakeview living room, watching the snow fall. Patrol, I say. Patrol, she confirms. Lakeview isn't very big, not really. The nurse station at the end of the living room space overlooks 2 hallways, one filled with staff offices and supply closets, the other filled with patient rooms. Mama's was the last one at the end of the corridor. There was someone else living there, of course, the last time we visited. Her name was Jenny, but she had nothing at all to do with the serial killer that connected me to the rest of the girls. Jenny had her own monster. The Stouter Six, as our moms were collectively known. They were special. Now, Mama's room is nothing more than a stale-aired box. The only furniture is an old chest of drawers. Empty. Melly checks the window, and I sweep the tiny attached bathroom. Aside from a desiccated spider in the sink, there is no sign anyone's been here since Lakeview closed. The tightness in my chest loosens. We check each room just the same. Windows, bathrooms, closets, all bare. Eva, I call out at the nurse station. Hey, Kylie, Melly yells after me. Annabelle? No answer. Well, how much water did she buy? It's a joke, but Melly's eyes are worried. Next hall, I say. No conclusion jumping. Now is the time to stay steady and calm. Melly nods, scurries into the first office in the next corridor. Nurse Layla used to work in this one. She had it decorated with little gifts that patients had given to her over the years. Pine cones, stuffed animals. Now the walls are bare, but the desk remains. The drawers are mostly empty. Melly picks up 3 pens and a couple of old paper clips she finds and shoves them into her pocket. So, how was the funeral? Her voice is careful. It's okay. The weather kept most people away. Couldn't have been any warmer than maybe 30 degrees. I'm sorry I didn't make it. Please. You've had your own to worry about. 4 months isn't a long enough time to get used to the idea of being an orphan, you know? No, I guess not, she says. Your mom was the last, though. Why didn't she, I don't know, hide better? It's not like she didn't see it coming straight for her. Or maybe she didn't think it would really happen. Do you ever think of that? Maybe she was tired of being scared and didn't care anymore. In the end, it felt like she was waiting, just waiting. The next 2 rooms are old offices. The second is filled with old broken chairs, and the file room is next. Melly opens a cabinet, makes a face. You've got to be kidding me. They left all the files. Really? See for yourself. She runs her finger down the drawers and yanks another out. Look, here's your mom's file. This is so weird. This has got to run afoul of some kind of patient privacy law. Probably costs money to destroy records and pack them back up, she says sourly. Why bother to do the right thing? She pulls out another file, flips open the cover. What does it say? This is for my mom. It's a police report on the people Stouter killed the night at the camp. Mom never really talked about that night, to me at least. Did yours? A little, but that's usually meant she'd be a wreck for the next week. Well, more of a wreck. Melly nods, running her finger down the file. Let's see. There were about 24 others at the camp, including a couple of little kids, but oh, this is pretty brutal. Maybe I'm glad she never wanted to get into the details. A few moments later, she gasps. What? He forced my mom to help. My head goes fuzzy. That wasn't in any of the reports I've collected. I'm sorry, what? My mom. He forced her to tie up the little kids. Tears run down Melly's cheeks. He made her watch. He made her hold the blade when he took the last one. Oh my God. Jesus, no wonder she had such horrible nightmares. Your poor mom. I wonder. I dig through the files until I find Kylie's mom, knowing that my file is in Melly's hands. Shit, he made Kylie's mom kill the church deacon and an altar boy. Melly takes the file from my numb fingers. It seems impossible. I thought I knew every Stouter Six detail. Mama's face floats behind my eyelids. The shape of her mouth when she screamed, at the sound of it. I wonder what else I don't know. She hands me Mama's file, but I give it right back. I can't. Okay. She opens the file, flips through. Her face pales to green. Did you know your mom willingly helped? I yank the file away. My stomach's a grinding mess, but there it is in bold letters. Leonard Stouter broke into the Alpha Pi Epsilon sorority on October 19th and waited in the attic. When he made his presence known to the women of the house, and after he killed his first victim, he asked for a volunteer and said no harm would come to her. Patty Wallace stepped forward. She bound her sorority sisters and followed Stouter around the house, handing him the weapons he called for. I turned to Melly. It says right here that Mama told one of the nurses she wanted to do it, that she knew Stouter before he broke in. What are we supposed to do with this? Melly thumbs through the other files. They're all like that. They helped. Eva's mom says she knew him too. What if they helped him plan it? My spine is an icicle. Why did he come back and kill them then? Melly slaps her hand across her mouth, but it's not enough to entirely stop the scream behind her fingers. I crowd next to her and read the section to which she points. Leonard Stouter died in the Lexington Correctional Facility 5 years ago. I don't understand, I say. A deep, aching hollow in my bones makes me grab Melly by the shoulders. If he's not dead, who killed? She runs out the door, screaming for Eva, Kylie, and Annabelle. Past the nurse's station, the winter gloom lights the living room. And that's when we see Annabelle. Her lifeless eyes stare right at us from the couch where her body sprawls. I scream long and loud. No one comes. I run to Annabelle, even though it's clear she's dead. Melly pulls me away. We have to go and find Stouter is dead, I repeat. He's dead. It's not him. But Eva saw him, Melly says. She saw him. You know he doesn't die. You know he doesn't. We sprint to the foyer. Our mothers are killers, maybe willingly, maybe not. I don't know what to believe, but Stouter is dead, cremated if the file is right. You don't come back from that. Melly, give me the key. Melly doesn't have the key. Eva stands in the doorway behind us, a small crossbow in her hand. Oh, Eva, thank God, Melly says. We found files on all our moms. They helped with the killing. They helped. And Stouter's dead, like dead for years. You think it was him who attacked you? We need to get out of here, I say. Eva chuckles. There's a whoosh and Melly grunts. A bolt sticks out of her ribs. I press my hand to the blood oozing out of her. What are you doing, Eva? Where's Kylie? Out in the barn. She smiles wide enough to show me all her teeth. My mother told me it was his final wish, Stouter's. Close the loop. Finish what he started. Like a rubber band snapping back, she reloads, points the crossbow at me. I freeze. My body is cold as winter. She shoots, this time at me, and I am hot and cold, alive and dead, angry and sad. The floor is hard. Eva nudges me out of the way, flips the deadbolts on the door. She drags me outside by one arm. The snow is sticking now, to the ground, to me. My hand presses to my chest, sticky, red. I am cold as the snow. Eva stands over me and raises the pistol to her head. Smiles. Close the loop. The discharge is louder than my heart, louder than life. Louder than the snow as it crashes down on me softly. She falls next to me. My breath comes in ragged gasps. I stare into the winter gray sky and wait. Part of me still believes that one of the girls has survived. We are the final girl's daughters, after all. But the sky dims, or maybe my vision does, and I know no one is coming. I only hope that Sheriff Ramirez chooses not to bother the gravediggers to bury me next to Mama in that frozen clay. My body has had enough of the cold. Thanks for letting me read to you tonight. And of course, thanks to Daniel and Laura for hosting Story Hour. Hope you all have a chilling night.
Wow, thank you so much, Nicole. That was awesome. What a night, two very different, well, three very different stories. But all terrific. Brian Hugenbruch, Nicole M. Wolverton, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all out there for coming back for yet another story hour. And of course, I want to thank my fabulous co-host, Laura Blackwell, without whom we would not each of us be able to do this on our own. So thanks, Laura.
It is my pleasure.
And please come back next week. We have Nicole LaBeouf, who is just a stalwart friend of Story Hour. She's here often as a listener and a wonderful writer. So we're really looking forward to having her back as an author. And Ben Pladek is also joining us. So please come back next week. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.